All right, what's going on, folks? We are in full throttle. Uh, Thanks for those that are able to join today, and we're going to talk about this thing right here. So, it is what? It's Tuesday. Whoa, got some feedback. Don't need that. We don't need him. Let me close this other window. So here we are. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's get this video posted out here. We'll get this thing started up. All right. Welcome everybody. We're gonna talk about the iPhone. It's iPhone season, right? It is iPhone season. It's time to chat. It's also some other smartphone seasons too, but they're just not here yet. That's all that is. But we're gonna get to it. What's going on? What's going on? I see you guys. Forgot to put this. I forgot to put this link up on the site real quick, but we're gonna go ahead and do it. Let's edit this joint. Thanks everybody for coming by. We're gonna keep it pushing. Yes, I'm feeling the phone so far. It's doing pretty good. I want to talk to other iPhone users about some items. I mean, it's definitely a hot device. We're gonna talk about it though. So, what's going on, Barry Johnson? Boom boom. Who's at work? Anybody? Tell me if you're at work. But you don't have to say your word. Just kind of give me a wave in the chat if you're at work. If you are at work, put a little hand gesture in the chat. Trying to see what time of day it is for a lot of people. All right, let's get to this chat. All right. I see you guys. I see you guys. So I'm kicking it solo today. I did send out some invites to a couple of people to see if they wanted to join in. If you are a content creator and you want to join in, Anthony's sick, so he can't make it today. But if you are a content creator and you want to join in, feel free to shoot me a message and I will let you come in. So I know I'm not supposed to be drinking that soda. I wanted something sweet though. And that's definitely all the sugar I need for the day. So Grant, like I said, oh, Grant's here. Okay, lunchtime. Oh yeah, I know Grant. I know Grant is at work. Grant's out. Grant's work. He's a hardworking gentleman. He gets his grind on at work, and then he produces these fantastic videos on YouTube for us to engage in. So we're gonna chat about the iPhone and again, if you see people randomly, I sent a message to a few people to if they wanted to come on, they could, because I don't know who's working and who's not. But it's kind of one of those open platforms today. So if you want to join in, you very well can. Here's one of the people responding right now. Let me respond. Yeah. So we are going to hang out. Uh, yeah, I love Grant's. He's already got a couple of videos up on the iPhone, so you might want to check those out. He'll have you rethinking some of your purchases for some of your phones, because the phones that some people think are so great for cameras, you get those real world. I do camera reviews too. It's just that I think the where he lives, he I don't know if that's his complex or whatever, where he has the water fountain. Like if you watch, I like that he does content. That's what I do. I do content of the same thing. That way you can gauge and go back and reference. That's why I shoot the same thing, because like with different phones, I shoot the same thing, so you can have a gauge and reference later on. If you have a question, you just search my channel. Oh, he did do a video on that, and I'm sure that's why Grant does it too. But I think what it is he has more to look at where he lives. Like I'll see the waterfall, I see the statues out there, and he does a night portion when he's walking up that sideway. I don't know if that's just his complex or whatever, but it's more to look at where he lives. And so I could get out there and I could do, more stuff walking around and giving you more content like that. But the fact of the matter is, I don't want people to know where I live at, because you could see where I live and say, oh, okay, my aunt lives over there. I'm gonna go over and say hi to Jay Will, or you start trying to find locations, and that's the only reason I don't really shoot outside anymore. The most I do is my backyard because of the psycho. Remember him? Some psycho I had to take care of showing up at my house. Well, he didn't really show up at my house. You know the story. He kind of just was waving at me from across the field. I'm like, what the frick is going on here? Yeah, no, Grant, you killing it, man. I got a video I'm working on as I clean my glasses here. I got a video I'm working on for the iPhone 13 and the Z Flip 3. And both of those are going to be coming out sometime next week or this week. I'm not sure, because I'm really enjoying the iPhone 13 and I want to share my thoughts on it more so in the setting of a review style follow-up. But I wanted to live stream about it for sure for Tuesday. We're clean again. Yes, out of box for the win. And I also have another one coming because when I shot the video for, okay, so I grabbed the 512 and then the 256 gave it to the wife. And then I had this Pitaka. Shout out to Grant on his latest video. Check that out if you haven't already done so. He's got some carbon fiber style cases, and he actually references, this style of case right here. So I'm wearing this on my my iPhone 13 Pro until my other OtterBox comes in. But the wife jacked me, and that's fine. She's good to go. She can have whatever she wants. So it's not like I have a choice. So today we're going to no man. Thank you, Bradley, for thinking of me. No thunderstorms. Big Mosley, Jay Mooring. I see y'all. You guys coming in. Appreciate it. Art Dog. Yes, man. Man, Rich. What's going on, Rich? Yeah, no thunderstorms today, Bradley. Surprisingly enough, it seems like every Tuesday when I stream, there's thunderstorms. It's incredible. So today there is no thunderstorms, and I am completely happy. Yeah, Grant, she sure does. I am completely happy that there are no thunderstorms. There are no thunderstorms, and I'm totally happy about that. Whew, boy. I was like, man, I mean, and even though you guys followed, if you don't remember, you followed me on a short journey where when I got this house built, I didn't have any hard wires for this office for internet. So I had to come out and have them hardwire the office because I was having all those connection problems. And turns out it wasn't even so much that, it was the main box in the community was down. Ugh, it was a mess. So if you're not following along and you haven't been following too much, I have moved on to the 512. And I have been using this I used this for my Amazon Live this morning. If you're not following me on Amazon Live, go ahead and check my Twitter. You'll see the latest post for my Amazon Live. But I used this today for Amazon Live. And when the video started off, I was like, wow, it's so grainy. I watched the replay. And I think it was just about connection. And because it gets super clear. But I've been using this for some things. I don't want to spoil everything for you, but I do have a lot coming. So Grant says, welcome all the haters. I think I know what he's talking about because I looked at the chat. I looked at the video. Like, okay, so here's this thing. It's so strange. Sharita, I see you just came in. Hello, good evening. I looked at the video and I saw like 35 thumbs down before it even got started. I was like, what the heck? And so last week it was the same thing. So every time I post a live stream and I put it out there when people are waiting for me to come in, there's like 30 to 40 downs votes before it's even there. And I just think it's kind of childish. I laughed about it. Me and Night Tech were laughing about that last week when we streamed. I think we streamed about the Surface Duo. We were kind of smirking at that, like, what's wrong with these people, man? Like, that's really going to hurt my feelings if they downvote the video before I get started. It's kind of weird. It's kind of like stalkerish. Right? Isn't that kind of stalkerish? That's like stalker type, right? You're finding time to come to the video and vote it down a whole bunch before it even gets started, like 30 minutes before it starts. I look on there and there's like 40 thumbs down. I swear we have a blast laughing at this, and it in no way hurts my feelings because I feel like that means that I'm doing something right and people are actually thinking about me. And so now every time I post a live stream, there's like 40 thumbs downs before it starts. And I just say, whoa, I appreciate the love. I appreciate the love either way. And then the weird part is, I think someone is kind of putting it in like this automatic machine or something, or an app or something like that. You know why? Because what's going on, Cliff? I got you at the beginning, man. Cranking 1985. I see you. But something is going on with that because that same video had like 40 downvotes. It is now only like 5 or 10 or something like that. Like a few days later, it updated and the thumbs downs were gone. So I was like, this is weird. But the fact, even if that's just one person doing that, that's stalkerish right there. That's some stalker type stuff. That's how you get them hands put on you. Like, as long as you keep it from a distance and do it that way, we're perfectly fine. Don't run up on me in the grocery store though, because you probably gonna have some issues. That's for real talk. I appreciate you guys stopping by, because let's be clear here. We can all give praise to other devices, which is what we do. We go in this cycle, but I'm gonna have to make a serious confession here. Um, I'm not even an iPhone person, but I have multiple iPhones though. Um, I'm not even an iPhone person, like full throttle. I carry one because family members, grandchildren, FaceTime, hey, grandpa, papa. That and in family, yes, that is a must. I have to keep them. I have to keep one at least. Um, so the reason I went with the 13 Pro, the 6.1, is because I genuinely wanted to try to use this full throttle. Like, keep my SIM card in here, because I carry, obviously, one of my favorites. And then my Pixel 5a is by my bedside, or is it right there? No, it's over. I was talking on it. It's on the it's on by my bedside. So I carry, those are currently my three phones. This has my primary SIM card. This has my secondary SIM card, and the Pixel 5a has my third SIM card. All phones get 24-hour rotation. Like, I leave the house this way. This is compact, and the Pixel 5a compact. So I, in fact, have a few things to talk about the iPhone 13 Pro, and I want to get your feedback on it. Um, uh, I want to hear. I've been kind of chatting around and looking online here and there, and I can see tons of people. It appears that tons of people actually like the 13 Pro. And it appears that there's a lot of people out there who actually bought this instead of the Max. Now, obviously, I'm not keeping track of this. I don't know for sure, but just based on what I see online, a lot of people like the Pro model, the smaller Pro model. For one reason, it's basically the same as the larger model. It's just a smaller footprint, smaller battery, smaller screen. Pretty much, these are identical phones, like literally. So we're going to talk about some things about the device. Now, again, this isn't like a review or one. Like, this is just like, you remember my After the Hype series? If you've been following me long enough, remember my After the Hype series? That's kind of what this is, just live streaming. Yeah, Big House, what's going on? I see you. Bad News, Gary Brown, what's going on, man? There's some things about the phone that it just really intrigues me, and I thought, you know what? Let's go ahead and chat, and I want to get some real time feedback on there. Okay, all right. So I have someone else just hit me up. Another creator. We'll go ahead and put him in here. So there'll be a couple of creators on this one. So let me get back in here and give this person the link here. There you go. So one person is going to come on in a few minutes, but there's some things about the iPhone Pro that I think, yes, Scott, Sierra Blue, yes. So I'm going to get I want to go to some of these comments here. BJ says, Jay Williams, I see a lot of comments that they feel the Pro Max is unwieldy. So this is the first conversation that I want. The Pro Max, the 12 Pro Max is in the other room. So I'm not going to go with that. I'm not going to go jump up and go get another stuff. We're going to discuss this though. Okay, so on this channel, I've always said, I'm going to get the Max. I'm going to try it out, but I'm going to end up going with a smaller one as my regular iPhone. If you've been following me long enough, you already know that is my way of doing things with iPhones. I have always said that the iPhone 12 Pro Max or the 11 Pro Max, the Max versions were way too heavy. Not that they're unwieldy, because my hands are pretty massive, and I feel like the same way I did about the 11 Pro Max and the 10s Max. I feel the same way about all of them. I think they're too bulky for the way I dress, for the way I carry it, because I like an outer box on my phones. And so it's not that I can't handle them. I just think they're too big for regular use. The only purpose to get the bigger iPhone is simply because you want a bigger screen. Because at this point, and I've seen the comments too, BJ. I've seen the comments about people saying it's too big. And I'm like, it's pretty much the 12 Pro Max. I don't see much difference. But I think some people got like a shock or something, thinking that it was going to be a certain way. I don't know. Maybe they never had any of the other Max versions. That could be it. That could be it. They never had a Max version, so they ended up getting the Pro Max because they got hyped about this or that, and now it's too big. And I can tell you one thing: you can't just buy one of these now. And I think Apple does that to try to create demand. I think all companies, like the award for worst launch is OnePlus, and then the other company that they have now, nothing, because that's what they're getting. Their sales are nothing. Marketing a device to try to create hype about it is this can affect you in two different ways. It could bring the hype and people can be excited, or it could blow up in your face. And to me, this deal with nothing, the headphones, nothing, I think that is a joke. They send me an email every week and say, hey, they're in stock. You can go ahead and buy one. And then as soon as I go over there to buy one, it's gone within a matter of seconds. And I think that's played out. So I just took myself off the list, deleted every link from them, because I think it's a joke. It's the same thing that was happening at OnePlus, but OnePlus learned from their mistake about how to market something. So I think Apple is kind of trying to create demand. They know that they're going to sell. Come on, folks. Be honest. Apple knows they're going to sell a whole bunch of these things. And they know that they should be ready at launch. What do? They still come with they could be sitting on these things in a warehouse saying, we're going to make them wait. We're going to drive demand. We're going to keep ourselves in the limelight. We're going to make it seem like we're really that important. And people want to buy our phones. That's what I gather when I look at how Apple is doing things with their marketing. They're doing it, but they're just having more available than the stupid OnePlus thing that they used to have. And this nothing earbud thing. This is dumb. Some companies want you to pay for your own device. You're basically doing a funding of your own device, and you're just waiting that's all it is. They know doggone well that they're going to sell a gang of these. They know they are. So the fact that they're back ordered to November, December, okay, come on. Yeah. Come on. So people are saying that this might be too big and it's just unwieldy. I don't know how they're getting that. I don't know how. And the only thing I would say is that they never had one of the other ones. They never had one of the bigger ones before. I have. All of the big iPhones, I've had them. And they are huge. They're too much to handle for daily use for me. I dropped it a lot. It slid out of my pocket more. I was forced sometimes to use it with two hands. Some people think because you have larger hands, you can just handle everything with one thumb. You have to hold your device and you have to navigate it. It's going to be kind of difficult to do that with a phone that's even bigger than this one. Now, the thing is, the iPhone 12 Pro Max and the 13 Pro Max, they're not that much bigger than this phone, but they're much heavier and they for sure are bigger. Now, here's a strange fact about myself. I actually prefer some larger Android phones. And I think it's because Android phones the ones I like are 20 by 9. Or, they're 20 by 9 or 21 by 9. They're narrower. And so that helps. But if you look at this now, this phone, this is the Z Flip 3. It's about the size of the Pro. It's just taller, but it's still tall and narrow, and it's easy to handle in your hand, and then you can close it up on them. So the fact that some people are saying that the iPhone, it's like some people I saw some comments saying, oh, why are people so in shock that the phone is big? They should have known that before they got it. Well, that's not entirely fair or true, because again, we don't know what these people had prior to them getting that big phone. If we're going to be fair about it. But like Grant says, the Pro Max is definitely a brick. I've been preaching that for some time to come. I don't know how a person would say that the Pro Max is not huge, but it is definitely a big phone. And even just because you have big hands, that doesn't mean that you can handle it with one hand like that. It's just not realistic. If it were a bit more narrow, oh yeah, there it is. If it were more narrow and curved, yes, it might help. Just like the Z Flip 3. This is a 6.7-inch display, 6.7 inches, and it's narrow though. It's narrow. It has nothing to do with it being able to fold. It's just that it's a narrow device, and that's just a huge plus. So post your questions down below. We're going to talk about a lot of things here on this phone if we can fit some in. FedEx always comes. Amazon, they always come when I'm on stream. So if you have a question, if you don't have the iPhone 13 Pro or just any of the iPhone devices, post your question down below and I'll try to answer the best I can. But hey, we'll get to it. So the first thing I want to talk about on the iPhone 13 Pro is the battery. I want to read you my battery numbers here. This is incredible coming from this phone, and this is purely just optimization. So I've got 5 hours and 50 minutes of screen on time, and it was last charged. Well, it says last charged at 9:57, but I was doing a video. The last time I charged this was yesterday at 8:27, and I've got 5 hours and 50 minutes of screen on time, and then I have 44% left. I've got 44% left. You see that? So battery life, what is this? Homecoming little, what that is. Battery life is absolutely fantastic on this device. I've got basically half a battery left, and I haven't charged it since 8:30 last night. And I've got 5 hours and 50 minutes of screen on time. That's absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. I mean, if anything, I'm wondering, and remember, we're still doing this AI learning thing. So I'm still I've had this one for about 24 to 48 hours. But it's still in that learning phase of how I'm using the device. Now, to be fair, I don't keep a lot of devices or a lot of apps on my phone. These are all the ones I install right here. This page and that page. That's it. So some people keep a boatload, and obviously the bye at the bottom, but some people keep a boatload of things on their phone, and they just keep apps on there that they absolutely do not use. And I always tell people, don't put apps on your phone that you're not going to use. Don't do it. What is the purpose of doing it? Okay, so here's a question from this is from Motive. Notice any dark hues with photos? I don't. I've taken plenty of photos and I've shot a lot of video with this thing. I'm telling you, it is great. Now, here's something I did notice. I think the last photo I took was this one right here. Well, that's one of the last photos I did, like a selfie type deal. But what I will say is, I got a guest to join in. I didn't even notice. What I will say is that on the front hue for recording video in certain lightings, like if I'm not outside, there is that hue still, that brown hue we talked about. But again, I'm not going to edit and post. I won't do it. I want to show these for what they are. And then that's pretty much it. So I'm going to bring on the first person to come on and join me, first creator. If you are a creator and you want to join, shoot me a link and I'll let you come on this one. We're going to freestyle with this one. We're going to let creators come on and give their point of view on things on the iPhone 13. If you have an iPhone 13, or if you just want to come on and chat with me about this phone, you don't have to have it. If you're a creator, you want to come on and join with me, we can chat about it. So I'm going to invite in the first guest here. I should have another guest coming too in about 15 minutes or so. Here is Mr. Michael Peppertech. What's going on, man?
Good afternoon.
What's up?
I have never used Restream before, so I was trying to like figure out how to get all my audio in, and it wasn't picking up my camera at first,
Oh yeah, yeah. You got to go into that
then
first time. Yeah.
so initially, you have to. I use Edge, so you have to tell it, okay, grant permission to use your camera and your microphone, and then you have to go in and adjust it, and then hope it picked it up. Fortunately, it picked up everything off the bat, which was good because when you're having all these USB devices, sometimes these softwares don't like to pick up everything. So can you hear me
Oh,
okay
you're
and
fine.
everything? Okay.
You're great. Yeah, you're great. You're fine. Yeah.
StreamYard has been messing up. Half the time I select my microphone and I come in and I find out minutes in or I'm done with the stream that it was picking up like my webcam microphone or my computer's microphone
Oh
instead of my
yeah.
actual, because it changed it on me. And
Yeah.
so
Once you set it, I will say if you're ever on your StreamYard again or Restream, I mean, when I set it up, I never have to make changes again. It automatically knows as long as you don't unplug anything or make changes. Whenever you go in and out of Restream, it'll just save your last settings. It'll save your last settings. So this is Michael Peppertech. So before we get going with more conversation, you can tell them where to find you. We'll start off like that. Tell them your website, whatever you got. Tell them anything you want to tell them to get this thing going real quick before we get back into this conversation because we have a lot of questions to answer.
you can find me everywhere at Michael Peppertech. Literally, go to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. It's all the same. I did that intentionally, kind of marketing thing, which I know you've talked about, keeping everything consistent. But I was fortunate that that they were all open and I didn't have to have like a Michael _ Pepper _ Tech or anything like that. It was just because originally I was just going to go as Pepper Tech, but that was taken. There was like some doctor's website that was taken with that. And so it's just convenient for me.
Yep.
I am starting a website, but getting, that all figured out is fun because you get your, like your, like GoDaddy or whatever, your domain, but then you got to have like a host for it, and it gets all fun figuring that all out. And and not all the surface.
At the beginning, it could be challenging. I've had a website for years, and it can be challenging at first if you've never done any kind of web design and stuff like that. But it's good once you get going, and if you can get whatever michaelpeppertech.com, which if you can't get .com, you can get .net. It's available somewhere probably, but. So we got some questions to talk about here, Mike. Man, we've got. Let me back up because you have what do you think about the battery on the 13 Pro?
Oh my gosh! So I went from the 12 Pro Max to the 13 Pro, and I know people are like, "Whoa, why'd you do that?" Right? Well, for me, I wanted the 12 Pro last year. I liked the size of the device.
Yes.
But it was one of those years where it was like, to me, it was you had the 12 mini and you had the 12, and the 12 Pro was more like a 12 plus.
Right.
Sort of situation, right? You had the additional camera, but you didn't have like the larger sensor, and you didn't have the LiDAR, or, like you didn't have some of the things that were in there that really made it the pro device.
Right.
And it was the first year with an iPhone with 5G, so I figured the biggest phone with the biggest battery probably should get you the best battery life. We all know that when companies first implement a technology, even Apple, they're definitely not flawless. So I'm not gonna, and we'll get into that with some stuff with the 13. I know for sure. But to me, I did a Best Buy trade-in. T-Mobile. Yeah, so Best Buy knocked $100 off the phone to begin with, but then they gave me $875 trade-in on my phone, so essentially $975 off. So I ended up paying $124.99 plus taxes. So it was like $178 to go from the 256 Pro Max to the 256 gig Pro. So no storage drop, didn't want to go to that 128 gig because, as you lose some features, you lose some of the stuff. 512 would have been nice, but availability, like you were talking about, it was really weird around here. Available, even the Apple Store didn't have things for like 2 months around here. I'm like, but I walked into Best Buy and was able to get a Pro. Like all the Apple stores were sold out within like the 250 miles or whatever here. I'm like, I'm not driving to California. I would have had to go to like. No, I would have had to go to like Texas or something like pretty far. I'm not driving from Michigan to, from Michigan to Texas or Michigan to like New York or Chicago to, I guess Chicago wouldn't be that far. It's like a 3.5 hour drive, but I'm not doing that, especially
we have a bunch
on launch day.
We have a bunch of Apple stores here. and there's 2 within 30 minutes for me. But there's just a lot of them in Texas, and I could have driven 2.5 hours one way to get my 1 terabyte that I wanted, but I was like, screw that. And the fact that I was able to get a 512 overnighted to me was incredible, because I pre-ordered the 256 gig, and then it came right on the launch date, and then I passed it to my wife, and I said, I'm going to go to the terabyte, but the terabyte was that 3-hour drive one way. I should have pre-ordered the terabyte, but I didn't think I was going to want it. But once I started creating with this thing, I was like, oh, I love this camera. So, I was able to, fortunate enough, like you said, to get in and get a 512 and then keep it moving. So what do you think about lens flare? I don't notice, to me, all cameras have some form of lens flare. I think some people get, not Scott, but just in general, when you look online, you see people talking about, they used to say it about the Pixel too. They used to say about the Pixel, the Pixel has horrible lens flare, but all phones can produce some type of lens flare. It's just a matter of the circumstances. So personally, I don't notice any lens flare on my camera. I mean, what do you think? In lens flare?
Well, how do I say this nicely?
Just say it.
If you know what you're doing as a photographer, you know what's going to produce lens flare and you know what isn't. So you can try to prevent it in some circumstances, and other circumstances you kind of have to deal with it. Right. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I have my normal camera in my bag here. It will happen if you point that thing right in. You're talking about several elements, layers of glass that are supposed to be perfectly aligned. But if the sun is at just the right angle and it comes through and hits just right, it's going to bounce. And not only that, but you're talking about these things are sticking out like they are now.
Right.
Now there's no excuse. That's not an excuse, but when my high end A6100s Sony can have that, I don't expect yes, it's an expensive smartphone, but really the camera elements are not the most expensive part of it. I mean, they pay whatever to Sony for their IMX 586 or whatever they're using in here. And actually this year that some of the companies were using different companies. I don't know if what was the Z Fold 3, they used a SK Hynix sensor in there. I was like, that's different, because they're not really known for smartphone camera stuff, but I guess I haven't really noticed it, but I don't tend to shoot in direct sun. I don't like that. I like the more cloudy, softer lighting.
That's where you get the real tones. You can do less work. When you shoot in a shaded area, sometimes the pictures are so much better and you get the true color tones. But when I shoot in direct sunlight, I have to work. If I'm actually doing a photo for something, not social media, when I shoot in direct sunlight or do videos in direct sunlight, I don't really like it too much, because it's a matter of the sun is going to give you too much, and you're going to get these glares and different angles, and you have to always keep the sun behind the camera to get the good footage. But at the same time, if I'm vlogging, what's happening. I'm squinting, and I don't want to put on shades. It's just a whole bunch that goes into shooting in bright sunlight, and even taking photos in bright sunlight. You are going to get some kind of pushback from the sun. Or even in controlled lighting, sometimes you can have a lens flare issue.
You're increasing contrast because you have that harsh light. So then I'm lighter skinned, so my skin gets really bright, but then the shadows behind me, because it's harsh, are going to be even darker. Right. So when the cameras are trying to get that middle gray, that balance, it's going to have to give up somewhere. So when people look at the iPhone pictures, the number one thing I hear is it's blown out behind them, and Apple likes to focus on the subject looking best, and they take that as a hit. I'm like, no, that's a good thing. Do you not want your subject to look good? I understand the background should look okay, but I don't care. If I was there, and let's say Jay Williams is going to hire Michael Pepper to photograph him and his wife for their anniversary, and I come out there, all you should hopefully care is that you and your wife's skin tones, your clothing, you guys are properly exposed and in focus. The background you can adjust for and try to get it as well.
Yeah, you can edit that in post. But what people don't want is to shoot right away, and then because some front cameras tend my white looking background. Some cameras can't handle that. It'll just blow it way out, and that looks horrible in a photo. But if you can get some kind of, obviously I'm using a 4K Brioche camera, but so you can see all the details in the door. But a smartphone, if it's going to shoot a photo or something like that, it sometimes will blow this out. It just can't handle it for some reason.
And I mean, if I'm grabbing my pro camera and going to do that, the other aspect is if I know that there's going to be a lot of bright light I'm dealing with, is I can go and put in bracketing in there, of course.
Yes.
So like I can go in and set it up so every photo I take is at the exposure I want, and then have like a under, over, full stop, and then I have the advantages to combine them and make an HDR real quick afterwards, which is a simple one click, which our smartphones do. Like that's one of the discussions I've had with somebody, and shout out to Tech King Mike and his Saturday Night Tech Fights that he used to do. But this was a discussion that was in there, was, to me, the advantages that a smartphone has is the AI and the smarts, and like that it does all the HDR, combines all that right away, and you don't have to know how to do that, and you can just click upload right to your social media.
So let's tackle some of these comments. I think what this person is asking, because it says iPhone 13 Pro or Pro Max not get 90 frames in PUBG. I don't play video games on my phone, but I've seen the discussion about people complaining or making fun of the iPhone, saying, "Oh, it doesn't do 120 hertz real time, or all the time. Not all apps are doing this." To me, as a mute point, I don't see the purpose of having. To me, it's like at this point, the iPhones didn't need 120 hertz anything. I mean, the way they're set up, you can't even really tell. It's just icons on a screen. So that's not really something that is important to me. It could get 20 frames or 24 frames or 30 frames. I don't play video games on my phone. And even if I'm not playing video games, I don't see the point because on Android phones, I can clearly see that I'm working with 120 hertz. For some reason, I could just tell. But with an Apple phone, the way it's set up, I don't think you can even really, except for my iPad. Man, the iPad, when I saw the difference in the shift, whoa, that iPad is so smooth. You can really see it for some. And I think maybe it's because it's a bigger screen. It could be the placebo effect. I don't know. But on that big iPad screen, it is beautiful. I can just see how it just floats across the screen. But on an iPhone, not so much.
You can. So I got in a discussion with a few people on Twitter about this today, and I was talking about like some issues I had with 120 hertz on some of my Android devices, and like I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but like I had this jello effect. So how you're on social media, you're on Twitter and Instagram, you have people's profile pictures. Well, when I would scroll really fast with 120 hertz on, it would elongate them and make them almost like an oval instead of a circle as you were scrolling quick with 120 hertz on. But when I disabled it back to 60, that went away. That's something I haven't experienced so far, like on my iPhone or an iPad. OnePlus does a really good job at that too. And I don't know if it's something in the tuning of the software as far as like it's actually refreshing the image rate. Because, people forget we have the image refresh, and then we have the touch refresh, and then you have like,
I think that's where
there's the layers of the display. So if they're not all moving together, and just if the image itself, if the app itself can't refresh the image fast enough, if the screen can move at 120 hertz, but the app is refreshing slower, you're going to get that stuttery effect. And like when you swipe real fast and then it's kind of slows down,
so
you
then
get those weird effects.
The real question, Mike, is it really Apple's fault? The developers need to get going more and get the apps going to 120 hertz. And then I'm pretty sure Apple's default apps, you might be able to see like 120 hertz, I would assume, but I don't know.
Apparently in some of the testing, and I kind of went back and was like, okay, are they using like, a lot of these tests I've seen are just somebody being like, it appears like this, or they're like comparing one to like an iPhone to the iPad, or like an iPhone to a Samsung device doing it. But I haven't seen any like, are you using an app? And as far as I know, there's not really any app that would be on. And would it be updated for iOS 15 and for the new iPhones to be able to even detect higher than that? Since the previous models didn't even support it, they probably wouldn't. Like, I don't know all this yet. So I want to do my own testing, but then it's like, until if the apps have been updated. So what they're saying is supposedly like in settings and on the home screen and stuff, they're not seeing it. And some people did some testing and it was like peaking at 80 to 90. My thing is like Apple in their own presentation said they'll adjust it. And like you could see in their own presentation that it was showing like 80 to 90 where you could see it, but it was going up to 120, but it was like brief, because I think our eyes just can't pick up like the brief amount of time that it's going to actually hit that. Because when you're swiping, you got to remember, as soon as your finger stops, the way they're doing it is like it's stopping with you. So if really your eye doesn't pick it up for that fraction of a second when it's at like that peak speed, you're not really going to see it. You're going to see it at like the midpoints where it's that 80. To me, like if you're a gamer, sure, but like then again, like you said, the apps have to be updated, and we all know like there are some game developers that they limit. So like OnePlus and Samsung devices will be limited to sometimes to 60 or 90, but then on gaming phones, they'll get the full advantage of like 120, 144, 160 or whatever. So that's on the developers then, and I'm sure if we went back to when this first existed on Android devices, we had the same issues with apps not supporting, and we still have that. And even early days of the iPads, I remember apps not updating and working with it yet, and like drawing apps. Although they were pretty good because Apple worked with some of the company, Procreate and some of these to like update their apps before they release the device. But that's the thing we have to remember. This is new. This just came out. Yeah, developers had access to iOS 15, but now they have access to the hardware. And it's like, we don't want to say, well, they need an update, but they do. Like,
so we've got.
Do you want Apple to send them out like 2 months ahead of time to app developers and then not get any more leaks than we already do on this thing?
So we got another guest coming on, and I want to get to this question also. This is to me, this is subjective. Real brief before I let the next person in. Does the iPhone take better photos? The 13 take better photos than the Pixel 5a? Honestly, when it comes to the photos, I think it's about the same as the previous generation 12 Pro. So to me, that means that I think the Pixel will take better photos, but I haven't tested them side by side yet. So I think for sure the Pixel will probably take better photos when it comes to portraits and some still shots. Now, where the iPhone might win is those macro shots, but possibly, but I have to test it to see. But let me let the next guest in real quickly here, and we'll keep this train rolling. I think Grant's already addressing some of these. Appreciate Grant addressing a lot of these questions in the chat here. Let's welcome on my man Trent Tech. I think he's ready. I think Trent's ready. Trent, what's going on, man?
Not much. How's it going?
It's going good, man. Glad you could stop by for a little bit. Man, we're discussing this iPhone. Trent, if you're not following Trent's channel, obviously we are probably. I've been watching all his content. He decided to go with the 13, so he brings a now Grant has the 13 as well. Grant has both. Grant has the 13 Pro and the 13. So, but Trent has the 13, and so I'm watching his latest videos. I've watched all his latest videos on it, and he brings a different light because me and Mike have. I normally would go with the 13, but I have two 13 Pros in the house. So, Trent brings another element to the table when it comes to the 13. Now, I know Trent will want to address this, so we'll just get it out of the way because I made the statement a while back, and I said, I don't think it's fair that they put like pro-like models the same level as the regular 13s because we're paying a little bit more, meaning those pro features I would consider like the cinematic mode. I think that should have been only on the pro models, but Trent has the 13, and if you haven't seen his latest video, he did like a real world test. It wasn't like this, he sat in a chair and blah, blah. He was playing with his kid. He was, they were having a good time. But Trent, what do you think about that? That's how I personally feel. Everyone's going to have a different approach on it. Now, some people are saying they're happy that Apple put it amongst all the levels. I'm like, the 1 year that I decide not to buy the regular model, they give all the features the same. Well, pretty much they give that feature really. What do you think about them doing that across the board? Do you think that is considered like a pro feature technically and that it should have been on the pro models, or are you happy? Of course you're happy that it's on all models, but how do you feel about them putting the cinematic and some of these other features on the regular 13 models?
Cinematic is fine on the regular 13 models because I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for saying this, but cinematic mode is not a truly pro feature, right? So it's something that a professional can take advantage of. But for better description, it's meant for everybody. Cinematic mode is meant to take your phone out of your pocket, hit record, take your hands off the wheel, and it'll do everything for you.
Right.
And a lot of professionals really don't roll that way. A lot of professionals, they want, manual aperture control, manual ISO control. They want manual shutter speeds. They want multiple shutter speeds.
Right.
That is what professionals and semi-professionals want. The everyday person wants to take out their phone and hit record. They don't want to fiddle around with it. They don't want to. I mean, it's nice that you can go back, later on and switch up the focus. But most people, they're like, hey, all I got to do is take it out. It's going to focus on me. Cool. If I look away and somebody else is over there, it focuses on them. Cool. If I just want to focus on me and not focus on anybody else, tap, hold focus. Cool. I hit record. It does all the processing. I have my memory or whatever I need to have. I got it. Mm-hmm. And if you want to go a little bit further, then sure, you can, edit it, make a video like I did. But with the exception of LumaFusion, my entire video was done on the phone. I pulled out the phone. I hit record. I told TJ, here, hop on the bike, ride as fast as you can. I ran after him, literally holding the phone out in front of me.
Yeah.
No gimbal, no special knowledge.
Much,
just
man. They gotta
like,
go watch the video. You spoiling it. They gotta go watch the video.
No, I'm just explaining, like, because some people will look at it like, oh, well, you're a YouTuber, you got all this gear. I'm like, no, I pulled the phone out of my pocket and record.
So that leads to another conversation that I think Apple has improved on. Now, let's be clear. Apple hasn't improved too many things from the 12 to the 13, but for those that have the 13 Pro from the 12 Pro, I think there's way more improvements than it's a better experience for me, I would say. I wasn't expecting to be such a good experience, especially with the battery. But we tackled battery already, Trent, but how is your battery on the 13? Because we don't have the 13. How's your battery on the 13?
The battery is great. So to me, when I look at everything, I was upset that I bought the 12 because I went backwards. Like, to me, going from the 11 Pro to the 12 was a step backwards because they shrunk the battery and they threw 5G in there, so it was like a double whammy.
Right.
Going to the 13 feels like the true upgrade to the 11 series. And the 13 even feels like an upgrade over the 12 because of the extra battery they were able to put in.
Right. I think that you basically should be getting a fantastic battery on all of the iPhones this year. Again, I know we already covered that, but I wanted Trent to catch up and get his thoughts on the battery. I think the battery life, everybody this year is getting some fantastic battery. Yeah, see, he's getting great battery. That's fantastic battery, and that's kind of unheard of on the Pro model, the smaller model. Like the 12s always had pretty decent battery. The Mini had kind of battery, but the Pro Max had fantastic battery. But then when you get into the all these models across the board this time around, well, while Apple doesn't give like the true battery numbers like we would like on Android, like they should just come out and say it has a 4,900 milliamp hour. They don't do that for some reason. Because in all actuality, I know why they don't, because consumers are not concerned about the size of their battery. Consumers are concerned with how long it's going to last them throughout the day. So that's why Apple does it. But the flip side is that Apple knows that a lot of tech enthusiasts are watching, and they know we want to know. You know what I'm saying? So they don't do it. So as Grant pointed out right here, he's laughing, but it's true. I mean, this is something, it's nothing but portrait video for the cinematic mode. And I mean, I just basically can appreciate Apple doing it. Finally, I just appreciate them finally doing something to make them kind of come up on because people always said that Apple had the best cameras. I kind of disagreed with that. I think there are plenty of Android phones that have way better video footage and still shots. Now, I think a lot of us are waiting for the Pixel 6 Pro because we know Google has proved themselves with cameras. Now they just got to get their videos on point. and I think it's going to match or even beat out on the 13 Pro models. To be honest, I think they will. So, are you guys expecting? Because I mean, first of all, do you think that Apple made a huge difference with their cameras this year? You think they made a difference?
I think if you were looking compared to like if you were one of the types of people this year in particular that you don't like the Pro models, I think that was a significant with the sensor shift technology coming across the board. It's been a weird thing. So like the 11 Pro Max, then going to the 12. The 12 had basically the cameras that the 11 Pro Max did minus the telephoto, and they did the same thing this year. The 13 and 13 mini have the like 12 Pro Max cameras minus the telephoto because you get that sensor, that bigger sensor, and like the sensor shift in the regular models.
Right.
So it makes me curious, like next year, what they're gonna do. Is the 14 gonna have like the,
oh man,
they're gonna have like I think they probably will, and then the pros will get 4K 60 or 4K 30 cinematic, but we can, we don't need to get, but that's another, like, that's probably their progressive step. But to me, I think that is that, and the normal and ultra wide both having the autofocus, and the Pro models having larger sensors, even more so this year, and having a more consistent experience across all the sensors. And I don't think like the 2.5 shifting from like 2.5x to 3x zoom is huge.
The clarity though is different.
It is nice to have that extra for clarity, for sure.
I don't know if you were going to say it, but the clarity with that 2.5 versus that 3, for some reason, it's a lot clearer. It is a lot better. So I mean, hey, it's a thing.
And if you're doing portrait stuff, because it uses the differentiation between the two sensors. So there's been discussion. People are like, well, why can't they bring cinematic mode? And why can't they bring this to the older iPhones? And people are like, because it's just software based. Why can't they do that?
Yeah.
I don't know if you watch Rene Ritchie at all, or, he kind of got into part of the discussion on this. And I thought that this was the case too. But apparently it's because the fact that now 2 of the sensors on they have autofocus on multiple of the sensors, so they're using that to do that, where like the previous models didn't do that. So to be able to shift the focus between the two, it was locked to one sensor, so you wouldn't really be able to implement the way it's working software wise, because it's not using LiDAR, which I feel like that could have been a thing. They could have been like, yeah, it's great on the mini and the 13, but it's even better on the Pro because we can use LiDAR to do this. That's like, it's confusing me why they don't take more advantage of those sensors. And like even the front sensors for Face ID, why they don't take advantage of that for these, now, because they could have pixel level edge detection, because it's the lasers that are sensing your face. How do you fail at that? Like, there is no triangulation of light. It's a hardware thing. Like, So
Trent, you're now Trent. Again, you got to follow both of these guys in order to see what I'm talking about. So Trent he was coming from the 12, and you guys know I have a 12. I still have a 12 mini. And this year I didn't have, like, this year I decided, I'm not going to be trading in my good devices. If I get rid of them, I was going to sell them. But Trent, coming from because Trent did a transition. I technically, I guess I jumped down or up like Mike did, I guess. I went from a Pro to a 12 to a 13 Pro. So I did some flip-flopping. But Trent is coming from he did a transition, even swap, basically. And how do you feel? You think you got a good deal, I guess I'll say, going from the 12 to the 13, even though I think in your video you said you wanted to get the Pro, but it just was on the table at the time. But you got the 13, and the 13 is actually really good. I still might grab a Starlight, if I'm being honest, because I do have a phone I could, sell and get a Starlight, because I do want to see how that 13. I watched Grant's video, and I watched your video, and I was like, I'm intrigued by the 13. And also I want to compare battery life. But do you think, like, going from that 12 to that 13, that even like gradual, the next step that some consumers would do, you think you got a good deal as far as improvements go? Do you think they improved on the 13 enough to make you say, you know what, okay, it was worth it? Like, if you did a trade-in or sold it or whatever, you think it's worth it, Trent?
Yeah, I think it's worth it because I came from an iPhone 12, 64 gig, and last year I had to pay $829 to get that phone. This year, to get an iPhone 13, 256 gig, I paid $899. So I paid a difference of $79 and quadrupled my storage.
Right.
That was the one thing that made me so mad about Apple last year, because I was trying to decide between the base model 12 and the Pro version. The Pro version was $1,000, but I didn't want to spend $1,000. The Mini was $699, but I didn't want to pay $700 for a 64 gig Mini with a small screen. So I kind of fell on the sword of paying $829 for a 64 gig base model iPhone. So for me, it was an upgrade, and I was just like, because I needed the more storage, because I'm tired of trying to, use my phone less or get more iCloud storage or whatever. But that was the sticking point for me, was that 64 gigs. I'm just like, come on now. And so when they got rid of it this year, and they said, all right, well, you can get 128 for $799, or you can get 256 for $899. And I went through T-Mobile. I was like, that's a no-brainer. 256.
Right. Yeah. There's no reason to get anything lower than that if you don't have to. Especially if you might want to need this. You might use the storage in a different setting. And Apple, we were talking about storage. That was going to be my next transition in. Thanks for going there, Trent. Storage. The storage options are completely different this year, but it's what they should have been all along. Now, this isn't a stream to just praise Apple. It's just totally not going to happen. It is ridiculous that first of all, they don't have you don't have real access to your file storage on iPhones. I don't care what anybody says. People have argued me down. Oh, you got files. You can get into it this way. I don't think so. So therefore, I'm limited. There's no SD card. SD cards will always be a thing, folks. But the fact that Apple doesn't use them, here's a situation where I give Apple credit. I think if Apple were to implement their own, like Huawei, do you remember Huawei's cards? They had a specific card just for their phones. If Apple
Nano SD?
Yes, those are fast. I mean, really fast. So if Apple were to do SD cards, they should do something like that. They can go ahead and sell it. People will buy it. They'll call it the world's first Nanotech EX5. They'll name some stupid name and sell them at a ridiculous price probably. But people would probably buy them because 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte cards exist right now, but they're really expensive. And I think photographers are buying those. But the storage option, fellas. Mike, the storage option. Do you think Apple's storage first of all, I know what you're going to say for part of this question, but I have to ask because some people might, they might want to hear your thoughts on it. So do you think that Apple is late to the game with obviously changing their storage options? Trent already covered that the pricing was not fair. And I think we all could agree on that for what they were offering for storage. But how do you feel about Apple taking so long to finally do higher storage options? And then what do you think about those storage options as far as the way Apple does the pricing? Or because would you have gone with a 1 terabyte? I was shooting for the 1 terabyte for creation purposes, not for just to have a terabyte. I was shooting for the terabyte because I wanted to transition because I really like the cameras. But how do you feel about their storage options, Mike, on how Apple has handled it up until this point?
So here's the brilliant thing they did. We're going to go back a couple of years and we're going to talk about real quick how you remember the base model iPhone was 740 was 7 no, I'm not going back that far.
Oh, you're not going back to 8 gig.
I'm going back like a few years. So
okay.
They had a 749, right? And then Samsung came out with like their S10 series and it was the same price. And then Apple dropped, so they dropped $50 off theirs to make it $699, right?
Right.
So that was the 10S year. Then they dropped things down. Then the 11 comes out. And they kind of drop things down. So your 11 was $699, and then you had options up from there. But what they did that was brilliant last year that kind of masked things was they dropped the mini in there. So really the device that compared to the upgrade of the 11 was the 12, was actually $100 more expensive. The mini was the same price as the 11.
This is a 256 gig mini.
So they got that in there, and so now you're actually you're paying 100. You're actually paying for 128 gigs what you would have been paying before for the same device, because they dropped that mini in there and they snuck that in there at the price point that they did. Now, people complained with the new iPad mini. It only starts at 64 and then it jumps to 256 and this and that. Now, if you look at how they marketed that, though, where I can agree, where they marketed that as a device for like doctors and stuff that are mostly doing like cloud. They didn't market it really for content creation that much. They talked a little bit about it, but it's what that device is marketed to. And then you have the users like, if they really are going to watch a lot of video and store stuff on it, then you jump up to 256. And I think the hard part is like, if they offered a 128 gig option, then like they put that in the middle there, or do they drop the 64 gig price cheaper, but then it's too close to like the regular iPad, because they have the regular iPad at $329 that then but then there's a more expensive model.
Mike, don't you think they need to just get rid of those 64?
They do.
$500 for the 128 gig. It's just simple for me.
Or if they're gonna do the 64, offer it like bring the 128 gig models in at what the 64 was before, and leave the 64 at like $100 less for those people that just want that device but don't store a ton on device, and give them a good like knock the price off. Don't like keep that at because they've done that before. I mean, we've seen the MacBook Airs, like we've seen them jump. They went from 128 as the base model to 256 on the M1 models.
How many years later though?
I mean, it took a while, but they as far as storage, like, and the proprietary stuff, the only issue I have is that built-in storage has gotten so fast that when you go to take videos and photos and that post-processing and it buffers from memory to dedicated storage, they would have to add like an extra step. So it buffers from that to internal storage, and then it would have to transfer from internal to external. And if you're sitting there, like in the past, I could think about that. But now as they start implementing more and more stuff, and I think this is why we've seen Samsung and other companies step away from doing this a bit now, that is a massive amount of data to try to transfer in a short amount of time. Like the ProRes that's going to become 6 gigs in 1 minute. Like I'm imagining trying to transfer that to an extra.
But check it out though.
But it would be nice to have. It would be nice to have.
Yeah, but Mike,
because you can just put it to dedicated, and then SD cards are still fast enough. So just do it later.
What I want to say is, you brought up Samsung. What do you think about? And I want to go to Trent next, but what do you Samsung? They have new cards just for content creators. Have you seen their new cards? Let me pull up their new. I'll try to find them on the website and I'll show it here. Samsung has new cards just for content creators, and if you've seen them,
I have one. I can't. I fell off my desk somewhere, but
there you go. Trent.
I don't know about that compared to internal speeds though. That would be my
I haven't tested either, but
because in the past
for 4K you really should be using, what is it, class 6 I think it is, but most cards are class 3, 10.3, and you really should be using for real 4K content, which you can do some ProRes. It should be 6, not 3, I believe, for your like real cameras.
I use UI3, which is like their faster. But one thing I noticed with my Note 20 Ultra, because that was the last device that had micro SD support, from that was weird to me was I felt like things got slowed down when I put the micro SD card in there. Like it was slower to process some of those things than when I pull it out. So what I would do is I would just leave it out, and then if storage started like if I wanted to transfer, I'd just pop the SD card in, and then because the file system, like you said, then just drag, move it from internal to that external, and pop the external out and read it. I think because we've gotten internal storage that's so ridiculously fast now, that especially for micro SD card, because you're talking about like storage transistors on something that's that small to not create a lot of heat. I think that's where we're running into problems with recording, because like full size SD card, and now people are using compact flash to like record with their, you know, their 4K cameras and their 6K red and all this stuff. But like you said, they could do a proprietary, or you know what? Here's a novel idea. Somebody mentioned, and then there's been discussion on why they won't ever do this. You've talked about it before. We don't need to go into this, but USB-C, because then you can just pop a USB-C. Those lovely, awesome USB-C, the little sticks that have like the really high transfer rate. You just slap that on, or you know what? I have a. It's not even a super fast one. It's the 860 Evo. I got it for free from Samsung with trade-in. When they did the trade-in for my Galaxy Book Pro 360, but that would be way faster than most people need. But taking this, putting it in an enclosure, plugging that in, you can do it. I could do that with my iPad. I can do that with my MacBook, but I can't do that with my iPhone. I can't even use a Lightning to USB-C adapter and plug it into the end of it and get that, because they throttle that down to USB 2. So to me, that's where storage comes into. And my thing is, if you're shooting like high storage amounts of video and you're doing like this ProRes when it comes out, and you fill up a 1 terabyte iPhone, how are you gonna, like, they have 2 terabyte iCloud options, but imagine like you and your wife both have 1 terabyte iPhones. You'd be able to fully back up your device like once to the cloud, and usually they recommend having extra because, of course, you know, it backs up, and then you might have stuff that clears off device, but you still want it in the cloud to access, like over in your computer or whatever, and you wipe and you use your cloud for backup and transfer and stuff. You're going to fill that up, and you're going to have no choice but to, like, I guess, have separate plans per device. And I think that's why they don't do external, is because now it's like, now Jay Williams has to buy 2 terabyte for himself, and Mrs. Williams has to buy 2 terabytes for herself. And your kid, you know, if you had a kid that was, you know, they'd have to do their own, and you're going to end up with a.
I want to share the screen here, because
perpetual dinero for Apple, perpetual money every month, right? Raking in those dollars.
I want to show this screen here for the storage, because there's different options here for storage. Trent, you can chime in if you want to on here. This is Samsung's storage, right? So there's a storage option. I want to zoom in on this here, because the faster cards are the V30s, obviously. Well, if you don't know, the V30s, you need to have at least a 3 in that little section right there. And then you should have a V60. I misspoke earlier. A V60 is the one where you get the real high-end performance. Now, this is one of Samsung's newer cards. This is a V30. But they have it listing as like, oh, the Pro Plus. But in all actuality, if you can get one of these that says V60, that's really high-end footage. You can do RAW with these V30s, but the V60, I believe, my card is in my camera, but you can do if you get V60, you can handle it. And so if Apple were to do some kind of external storage, obviously it needs to be at least a V30, but V60 is actually what's ideal for professionals. And I'm not even a professional. I just know how to do my own research. After buying so many SD cards, V60 is what you really need to shoot ProRes, or what you should be using, I say, to shoot ProRes. But I don't know. I think for YouTube content creation, phones today are absolutely good enough. But Trent recently put up his A7C for sale. Trent, we'll skate into this next segment, because I know this is a hot topic for creators, but I'm pretty sure, you know, regular folks can chime in too. Trent, on the subject of creation and what these, because I don't know if you've sold it yet, but I just put mine up for sale too. But on the subject of creation, when it comes to Apple doing storage externally, it's not that it's a bad thing. I think people just can't fathom the idea of Apple doing external storage. But like I said, if they do it like Huawei, or if they do it like Samsung with these types of cards, I think it's totally possible. And I think people will catch on easier than they think they will. Creators will. They'll mock it at first, but they'll get on board. So, I mean, Trent, how do you feel about Apple? Even if you think is it something they can do, or because the storage options right now are just now getting to where they should be?
So are you talking about are you talking about as far as recording video or?
Yeah. And also
Like,
Apple's base storage, like Apple's storage versus their pricing. Like, what took them so long to get to this point? Because I know the pricing isn't fair, obviously, the way they sell them, jumping from a 64 to a 256 and charging you $150, when, like Michael said, they can just put in something inside of there in the middle. But I mean, the pricing that because you led us to this conversation when you talked about the pricing and the storage jump and how it was a better deal for you. They only gave the 1 terabyte option to the Pro models this year. First of all, will there ever come a spot where they do 1 terabyte for the 13s or the 14s or the 15s or whatever, and then move the Pros to the 2 terabyte? And also to piggyback that, you think will it ever be an option for Apple to even consider their own special external storage like Huawei did, which is blazing fast? Do you think that's an option for them at some point or another for their iPhones?
I think within the Tim Cook era of iPhones, Apple is going to squeeze every drop of profit they possibly can get out of the iPhone. And the reason I say that is because the reason why Apple could put 64 gigs in their mini instead of 120. Like, I thought it would have been better if they did 128, 256, and 512, because there's a bunch of people out there that buy a 512 gig mini, and I think Apple would have sold more. But the fact that Apple can say, hey, take it or leave it, it's the number one reason why they do what they do.
Yep.
Because I keep telling people that Apple has no competition. And everyone looks at me like I'm crazy when I say this, and I'm like, no, they have no competition. But what about Samsung? Samsung is not competition. Samsung is competition to Google. Google is competition to OnePlus. OnePlus is competition to Samsung. There's no competition to Apple because no one else can sell iOS, iPadOS, or macOS. So when Apple gives you, like, they did this a couple years back with they said, oh, here's a MacBook Pro. MacBook Pro, something that you're supposed to edit 4K and do all this wonderful, amazing stuff on. Model 128 gigs. I'm sorry, what? 128 gigs? And you want over $1,000 for this machine? And the OS take up almost, 25 gigs by itself, right, with the programs and whatnot. You're calling this a MacBook Pro? Well, that's just the base model. And then, a lot of people who could only afford the base model, what can you do? You can't upgrade the storage yourself. You can't go anywhere else and get a laptop with Mac OS. You can't go anywhere else and get an iPad or an iPhone with that. So that's really just Apple is leaning on their own customers, and their own customers know it too. I'm a customer, other people know it, and it's just like, hey, if you wanna use Apple, you got to do whatever they go with, even if you think it's unfair, and then that opens the door later to where it's kind of like an abusive relationship to where you accept, the conditions of relationship for so long that when someone finally does something nice for you, it's like the greatest thing on earth. I still have that feeling too. Like I still feel like Apple slapped me for like 3 years. It finally said, hey, you know what? We'll finally give you 256 that you can afford. And I'm just like, oh, thank you, Apple. Like, I'll admit it.
You said he slapped you around for several years and said, here, take this.
So
yeah, I mean, essentially, that's what Apple did. They gave us, Apple kept so many things away from us, right? They kept widgets away from us. Yep. They kept 120 hertz away from us. Yep. They kept larger RAM. They kept away larger batteries. They kept away so many things and just rode on the promise of iOS that when we finally got the things that other people have been living with for multiple years and that are an expectation in everywhere else in smartphones, we feel like Apple did the most for us. And that's where I look at where people from Android, they're like, why are y'all so happy? This is a normal thing, but relationship, when you find something that you've been wanting forever, it means so much more. And I hate that it has to come that example.
I think a lot of people in the Android community, and I'm pro Android. It's no secret. Well, BlackBerry really, but I use Android because BlackBerry has not done anything to excite me, and they won't give me a BBS device. But I think it's just a way to keep the conversation going with this rivalry that the tech community has created, because consumers don't freaking care about no Android versus iOS. They don't care about that. That's something that the tech community decided, hey, we're going to create this so we can draw attention to us. This is my favorite. And the fact is, it's okay. We all have some kind of bias or some kind of love for something. Totally okay. Nothing wrong with that. But I think this iOS and Android thing is just ridiculous, to say the least. But Mike, you were going to chime in. Go ahead. I'll let you get going before I go to the next thing here.
I was just doing some digging because, research is a good thing to do. And I was looking into some of these micro SD cards out there. And the fastest ones I found are the V90 series. Here is why I think that companies are going away from using these. Internal UFS 3.1 speeds on these integrated storage is 1.2 to 1.5 gigabits per second read and write speeds that these things can get. Micro SD cards max out at about 150 on the write and like 200 on the read. So you're talking like a seventh to like a tenth of the speed. I think that's the even though they're really fast, I think that's why they don't do that, because the conversion. Now, I think for photos and like everything else, it would be fine. Like, at least give an option. Like, say, you know what, you can't do it for video, but you can do it for, or you can't do it for like the high res, super large file video, but you can do it for your photos, or you can do it for video, but it has to be done like later. Right. It has to be buffered to internal and then transferred later, because you're talking about like, you take a video and you see it take a few seconds after it processes. If it was a tenth of that speed, you're talking about like it would take like a minute to transfer that when you're done, and then you're sitting there having to take video again. Right. They wouldn't want that experience to be ruined. I think that's but like, again, if you can just, because these things right here can match integrated the speed. So at least have like have your Lightning protocol updated, so I can plug a Lightning cable into my iPhone that has USB-C on the other end, and plug that into, like, I have a SanDisk USB-C that's one of those little ones, and plug it into the other end and transfer directly over.
That's where I was going
next. I can do that on every other device. Like, I can do that on my iPad. I can do that on my MacBook. I can do that on my, my Fold. I could do that on I got rid of my Tab S7 Plus. I traded that in, but
oh man, no, mine is right over there.
So I wasn't using it a ton.
Oh yeah.
And the thing that was gonna like make me use it a ton was to get their keyboard. Well, now their keyboard has gone down quite a bit, but at the time it was a little too pricey for me for what. So I traded it in. I got the Galaxy Book Pro 360 for basically what I would have paid for the keyboard. So I'm I mean, the Tab S7 Plus has a better display.
Oh yes.
It's quieter. It doesn't get as hot because there's no fans.
Battery is
like really good. Everything else I liked. I just wasn't using it like at all because of like, for me, the aspect ratio. That's why I like my iPad, because of the aspect ratio for me. For like, yeah, you get the black bars when you're watching video, but like when I'm doing everything else, editing, like that extra height real estate to me.
See,
So I
like
felt
the
like
fact
I
that
almost
74.
had to use it like a laptop. That was just for my personal,
So
opinion on that. So I felt like I had to have a keyboard. So like, if I'm gonna do that, I might as well grab something that I'm gonna actually use it as.
Let's transition to this comment right here. Can help us. I saw all your comments about Type-C, and Mike just kind of chimed in on it too. And that's where we're going next. We're going to hardware and Type-C, because this question right here says, do you think Apple will bring back 3D Touch on their future devices? It was great. Okay, 3D Touch was cool. I doubt they're going to do that. I personally don't think they're going to do that, but that's not so much about, that's a part of the hardware. It's a hardware question. I respect it. But the hardware-wise, the Type-C, there is already enough information out there. And I know that, and tech enthusiasts always make fun of this, but I think tech enthusiasts also know that Apple is not going to do Type-C on their iPhone. They have too many patents, and they have too much money they're making off of the Lightning cable. And that's really, to me, like Trent said earlier, I think they're just going to keep milking that cow until it's completely bone dry. And as far as them doing Type-C on their phones, if I was making as much money as Apple's making with the Lightning cable, would I switch? I mean, the iPad is now Type-C. All their MacBooks, everything's Type-C. I don't foresee them doing a Type-C iPhone for at least another 5 to 10 years, or if they start to lose money on the Lightning deal, because they have deals with everybody. You can't patent something and not get paid. And look at how many third-party Lightning cables there are. Look how many third-party MagSafe items there are. There are so many third-party things from Apple, and Apple gets a part of that money. So the short answer on the Type-C thing is, first of all, you can just Google it and you'll find out why, if you dig in the right direction. They're making too much money. They have so many third-party Lightning deals. And hey, if I'm wrong, you can tell me I'm wrong, but I think I know how to read. And they definitely are making a boatload of money off of third-party companies who use their patents. You have to pay it. You can't just use it and freely make a something that works with their phone and then not give Apple a piece of the pie. So for me, I don't think they're ever going to do Type-C for at least another 5 to 10 years. Well, then, okay, let's give them a little bit of credit. 5 years. I mean, a full 5 years from now. So in 2026 or 2027, we might possibly see Type-C. If they do it before then, I'd be happy. But if they don't, I just think they're making way too much money off of the Lightning deal that they got set up. And I don't think that's ever going to change. They're going to keep the Lightning port, because the Lightning, at least you have now Lightning to Type-C, right, Mike? You got Type-C on the other end now, and which means that kind of opens the door to faster charging, to where you don't have to buy Apple's brick if you have an iPad. If you have one of the newer iPads, you're safe. You don't need to buy another charger, because that charger will charge that phone quick. It charges it way faster. Now, personally, I use a Type-C 90 watts. It's not an Apple product. It's Apple certified. I have one by the bedside, and I have one, I think, I have like a portable one. And then there's one in here where I use 65 for the Type-C to the Lightning, and it charges my phone ridiculously fast. But, Mike, do you honestly think they are going to go Type-C to Type-C anytime soon? And then also piggyback into how you like the hardware on the new iPhones.
So real quick, the EU's ruling for the whole like USB-C thing. So I don't know if there's been some people talking about it. I don't know if anybody has looked into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But the EU literally has also said like, oh, and if you try to curtail that with some other option, we have the right to review it. So basically the EU is trying to say, oh, even if you want to go wireless, which is also now standardized, you can't go with that standard. It's basically they're saying you have to go USB-C. So it's not even about a standard anymore.
Yeah.
Like that whole idea was kind of a lie. It's like now it's about like they just want you. So, but Apple has money and they have attorneys, so I wouldn't keep it from them suing and going in after a court. And EU is huge, but Apple would be like what, the 5th largest country if they were their own nation or something like that. So like, so when you're talking about charging, I noticed something the other day.
What's that?
So my iPhone, I let it get down to 30% and I plugged it in. Man, it shot up to like 80-90% fast. So I did some digging, and apparently, if you're using like a 30-watt or faster charger on these new iPhones, some people are seeing that it will actually go up to like 26-27 watts for about 25 minutes of the charging.
Really?
Or until you hit like that, like 80%, and then it slows down. So I don't know. There's not really a good way to test it because like I've looked through all the apps, and then if you have one of those adapters that you can hook on the charger, usually that goes on charger end, and and then the device is gonna control. So unless that's communicating to the tester, there's really no way. But for me, I felt like it was a lot faster than previous because I'm just sitting there and I was literally just texting back and forth with my buddy, and all of a sudden I go, whoa, my phone's at 80% already. And then it was at like 95% not much later, and I just took it off because that last 5% takes you like an hour to charge. It always takes. That's the other thing. Like
a long
if they can get that but that last 5% takes that long, but then it doesn't take long to like take away. So I'm just decided I'm not even gonna the battery life on here is good enough. I'll just with the exception of at night, I'll just like let it charge up to 90% and just be good because that will still be plenty enough. But hardware wise, I don't really, with the exception of some of the mistakes Apple made, like the iPhone 5C and some of the, I don't think they ever really have bad hardware. Like as far as they did have some folds, like some phones that like the 6 series and 6S had some issues where people put it in their pocket and it could fold and stuff. And there were some things but like just looking at it as far as like the materials they use is usually always pretty good. Quality control is usually pretty good. I mean, there's some exceptions. There's been some weird anomalies, and we've seen that across the board with a bunch of to me it's like, but if they could I actually made a video about this, so if people are curious, there's a video on my channel. It didn't get a lot of love. I'm gonna promote it right now, and I know Jay Williams doesn't care about this.
I'll put it up on the screen.
I'll find it, and that I did that. I basically discussed how I felt like Apple could fix the MagSafe battery pack. And the idea was integrating storage into it. So like you use like an AirDrop / Bluetooth protocol. So now instead of having, and you could have a micro SD card slot in it. So you put your micro SD card in there, you slap it on the back, it charges up your phone, and it backs up your stuff using protocols that Apple already has. So if third-party companies want to use it, then Apple gets their money for licensing. There's their solution. They don't have to pay third party. So the thing with USB-C, though, that I didn't know until recently was apparently companies pay Qualcomm based on the value of the device, and there's like a minimum amount to license that for their hardware. So since they don't sell nearly as many Macs and iPads and other devices as they do iPhones, and a lot of the ones that they do sell are on the lower end. Even their MacBook, their MacBooks are kind of pricey, but like in perspective, if you're selling like, less than 1 in 10,000 number, 10,000th of the number of MacBooks that you're selling for like an iPhone or whatever the numbers are. So they would pay, like, you do the math on that. I mean, they've sold 200 million iPhones in some year. You do the math on that, and that's like, it's only like $5 billion, but that's still a lot of money. That's still a lot of money. Like, and that's just like the first. And to me, my thing, like the whole environmental thing is, I'm going to be throwing out like 50 lightning cables and like adapters and stuff. So just like the money from just like the 30 pin deal, when they switched, you had to get rid of stuff. But like, and the only reason Lightning even exists was because there was no agreement on USB-C back then. It took 2 years before the first USB-C, and now it's been, we're talking about 8 years from when the iPhone switched over to Lightning. And we're just now seeing a standard for Thunderbolt and USB-C being agreed on as far as like transfer speeds and charging speeds and all this. So by the time the EU ruling has to be put into place, that's 2 years from, it'll be 10 years from the first version of USB-C that they'll finally have like we all agree on this and all this. Which is ironic because Apple was sitting there in the meeting with Qualcomm and all these other companies when Thunderbolt and USB-C was developed. And basically the rest of them, at the time, the rest of the companies were large enough and had enough, they could raise their hand and be like, nay, that Apple could basically was like, you know what, fine, we're developing our own version then. And other companies did the same thing. We had the same thing with micro USB, but I noticed that with some USB-C ports, there's different depths on them now.
Oh, it is.
And you can wreck your device if you go to.
Yep.
And that's until they say, you know what? Here's the measurement for the port. It has to be this depth, and you have to support, from 5-watt charging, up to 50.
What's the wattage right now?
You have to support, 50 watts, and you have to support it at 5 amps, 10 volts or whatever. You have to support these specific sets.
What is it? Do you know it off the top of your head? I'm going to look right now.
So the 12 mini caps out at 15 watts, and it's 12 with MagSafe, and then the Pros are 20 and 15 with MagSafe.
Yeah.
But previously it was 18. When the iPhone 10 came out, they jumped up to from 12 to 18, and then unofficially the iPhone 7 and 8, if you plugged them in, actually would charge faster. They just didn't tell you that. If they just created a standard and said, you know what, you need to all at least support up to, or like a minimum of 30 watts, and it needs to be 5 amps, 6 volts or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can go above. You can go above that, and you can go below that. But like, if any one cable is plugged in on any device, it has to support at least this standard. So if I go to like some Five Below or some dollar store, and I grab myself a USB-C cable in the future and a charger, that's like your minimum. And it's not even like, to me, it's not even, it doesn't support fast charging. It's like, I've plugged in my son's Pixel 3a XL with a charger, and it wouldn't work. Like, I plugged it into, like, it just didn't charge at all because I wasn't using a cable that
was certified,
like was the right amperage for it, which works with all my other devices. It was a Samsung cable.
They actually all show 20 for the battery. They all show 20 watts. They can handle, and they can cap at 20, which is why your phone charged so fast, and that's why my charger is so fast, because I use much higher than 20, and I don't use Apple's. I will never buy, as long as you have an iPad charger, the Type-C iPad charger, don't buy any of Apple's chargers. It's ridiculous. So 20 is what it shows, and then 15 on the MagSafe wireless is what it's talking about. But 20 is fast for the cap for charging the iPhones, because these batteries still aren't that big. The Pro models just have just under a 3,100 mAh battery, but the battery comes down to optimization and stuff too. So that's something to remember when you're talking about the hardware of the Apple's products and with their battery and everything like that. So I think wireless charging is something that I think that remember, there was supposed to be like this thought of they're going to do only wireless charging, a wireless charging iPhone, and I think that's a possibility before they do that's FedEx. Before they do an option of FedEx and the garbage company, before they do an option of a Type-C. Now, I think Apple will do, if they come up with only wireless, it's going to have to be OnePlus, whoever manufactures OnePlus's wireless charging, that fast wireless charging, they're going to have to help Apple. Because I'm sure OnePlus has some kind of patents on that, because they have 50-watt wireless charging, which is ridiculous. That's faster than plugging in. And when I plug in my OnePlus into this ginormous 65-watt, my phone charges in 31 minutes almost every time.
I use that charger for everything.
Under. Oh yeah, you can use this for a bunch of stuff.
So I use the OnePlus power block, and then I use my MacBook cable because it's longer.
Oh yeah.
And I just carry that, and I use that for like every USB-C device now, because you know, and because it's USB PD, it will shift up and down, so it doesn't matter. But you have to use that with the OnePlus phone because like the dual battery charging and it recognizing.
I think wireless charging to me, if it's not OnePlus, is fast wireless charging. I don't think it's efficient either. So if Apple does it, they're gonna have to link up with whoever created OnePlus's device for fast wireless, because 50 watts wireless fast charging is freaking fast. I mean, if you haven't experienced it, the charging of a OnePlus device is incredible, and Huawei also does it too. Xiaomi has their version of it. They're just fast.
I read an article. It's been a while back, but they were discussing wireless charging, and they did some tests. And they found out that with standard Qi charging, depending on how accurate you are with your placement of lining it up, can be anywhere from 38 to 80% inefficiency. So that means it could be as low as like 20% efficiency, or all the way up to 60.
If you get the cable in wrong,
62% efficiency, like with wireless, if you don't align those coils just right.
That's right.
I think that's why Apple went with the magnets, because the idea is like, this is going to align it for you, so you should be as efficient as possible. Now, the problem is you're going to have heat. So like that 50 watt wireless is going to charge at the same as like a 30 watt wired, because you're going to have a lot of loss in heat. Xiaomi's is interesting, but that thing's got like a blower on it, and it's like super thick. What I think is interesting to me is like, if you think about the iPhone 10 was the first iPhone that Apple did, with wireless. iPhone 10 and the 8 with wireless, and then it took them a few years, and then they made it faster and faster. But the fact that MagSafe is at 15 watts now, a lot of like
you think that's good though? Look at what it costs.
No, not compared to what we see overseas, but like what we've seen for a lot of years was 7.5 and 10 watt. Like 10 watts is now like the standard for what they call fast or super fast wireless for like Samsung and something. But not compared to what we're seeing from like Xiaomi and Huawei and these companies, not by far. And expensive, and that's a discussion. Kind of expensive to me. To me, when I thought about the MagSafe, I thought, well, an Anchor is like $50, and then the MagSafe charger's like $39. So I'm in like another $10 for essentially, because the MagSafe battery pack can be used as a wired, if you plug it in, it charges your iPhone at 15. So like, I'm like, so I'm basically paying $10 additional if you were to buy two things separate.
Is a little ridiculous.
So I mean, and the chip integration, there is some software based stuff for me, because I can tell you, I used a couple different third party ones with my wife's 12 mini when she had it. It killed the battery of that iPhone, like wrecked it, because there's no throttling. There's no like some of that software.
No AI is what you mean. There's no AI to help.
There's nothing adjusting.
You need to slow down, because when you have fast charging, even when you plug in, there's a burst at the beginning to get it all the way up to that 80, 90, whatever they say. And then that last hour or 45 minutes is a trickle charge. And because it doesn't want to blow the battery up in the inside.
Yeah. I mean, they're only even charging at like, most of them only actually charge at 5 watts when you have these battery packs on there. But there's none of them incorporate even to the battery to say like, oh, you're overheating, slow down.
Right.
And what was interesting to me was like, when I slapped it on the back of my phone, is what it would do is it would draw from the battery first down till you hit like 90%, and then the iPhone battery would drop, and then the battery, and it was like back and forth. So by the time your battery pack was depleted, it wasn't like your iPhone was dead too. Like it was one of those it was interesting. And Anchor has a pretty good, but like I said,
Anchor's products are fantastic.
And people need to, again, like you said earlier with the numbers, that created a huge problem, because people looked at Apple's and was like, this thing is only 1,460 milliamp hours, but they didn't look at the voltage. They didn't look at anything else. And Anchor actually, if you look at theirs, for theirs being a 5,000 milliamp hour, it gives you about the same charge as Apple's 1460 because it's different voltages and all this stuff and like different efficiencies, and they're all expensive in my opinion. They're all kind of pricey in my opinion. For like, I paid $30 and got a 22,680 like battery pack. Like if I want fast charging and need to charge up real quick with a battery and want the thing to like for what most people are probably gonna charge on the go, just get a battery pack, plug it in wired, and you get your full wired speed. It charges up, plug it in for 15 minutes. You probably have enough charge, take it off instead of sitting there for like an hour and a half with this thing stuck on the back of your phone that looks awful.
I mean, it would be cool,
I don't know how you do data transfer. That would be the other thing. Like, you're going to go into an Apple store and they're going to have to connect. If you put a beta on an Apple Watch and something goes wrong, you got to bring it into the Apple store and they have like that proprietary thing that they hook it up through the pins or the
hardwire.
Can you imagine like you have an issue with your iPhone software? You're gonna have to bring that thing to an Apple store. You can't you wouldn't be able to do it yourself because they're gonna have some proprietary pin thing, and and then if you have an issue with an update because for some reason, I don't know, your Wi-Fi went out partway through and it messed it up. I can just plug my iPhone into my computer and fix it myself.
Awesome.
Anchors
right here are freaking awesome. I got one. It is freaking fast. It charges the iPhones really fast. These are good charge. These little bricks right here are way better than Apple's, and they're $19. They're ridiculously good.
Can you put a Big House's comment about battery cases?
Let me go back and find his. Is it one? Is it where's it at? Towards the
right below. Well, right below. Where is that?
Oh wait. Okay.
Oh, it's showing already. It's showing already.
I want to put it up on the screen though, because I'm trying to find it in the list. Here we go. Wait. Where'd it go?
It's above Prince, below Aaron, right and this thing. Yeah.
There we go.
So, I agree. Like, because what was weird was Apple's battery cases did 11 watts. Gosh. They did twice what these MagSafe battery packs are doing. Right. They actually did a better. And then they have ones that were plugged in that used the Lightning port, and then you could plug in through and it would charge both up. And the only thing at least for me, that was really handy is there's been a couple instances my wife and I were out, right? And we were just driving around and we happened to, we were driving out and about and we happened to apparently be in areas where, cellular was pretty weak. So our iPhones had gotten pretty low. So I just grabbed my MagSafe battery pack, slapped it on the back of my phone. It charged up to 80%, took it off and threw it on hers. And it charged hers up. So both of our phones were able to, charge from like 50 to 80%, good enough for the rest of the day, the rest of the evening, and just take it off. If you have a case, it's like, unless she and I have the exact same phone, I'm kind of stuck. Like, but then again, like I carry, it's on the charger right now, but it's like this, it's a pretty good size. But it has a wireless charger, charging option on the top of it. And then it can support up to like 60 watts out from USB-C and also 60 watts in. So it charges itself up pretty fast. It has a regular USB port. It has a barrel port. So you can plug in like a barrel laptop charger into the thing and charge out from it. But yeah, the new ones are just, if you don't care about like taking a nice looking phone and slapping a brick on the back of it, some of these new ones are.
I like the one on the right with the rounded corners. I like those. I got one of those coming, by the way, too, from Zero Lemon. It's crazy. The bigger ones, like you said, the bigger battery cases, they're kind of they, but it's not something you're going to be wearing 24/7. This is something that you put on for an emergency purposes. And you forgot your charger, and so you need to put on a charging case. I think Zero Lemon is the absolute best. There's a ton of battery case companies out there, but Zero Lemon to me is the tried and true, proven version of the battery case that they give a good warranty. They always stand behind their products if something goes wrong. I just never had a problem, even though I've gotten cases from them that they sent to me. Which, technically they don't have to give me anything. They can just say, hey, we sent that to you. we're not going to fix it, and they will just drop another one in or send another one. It's incredible, man.
Incredible. I had a 7,000 milliamp hour one back in the day with the Galaxy S3. The only thing that was annoying was placing that thing in there because you had to angle it just right because it had the one part of it was the size of the normal battery from the phone, and then you had the bigger one on the outside. Yeah. So it took me like 20 minutes to try. You had to finagle it to get it to angle just right. But then that phone would last me like a week with that battery. Because you're talking about, back then, large phone batteries were like 800 milliamp hours back then. So a 7,000 milliamp hour battery was
There is a huge market for battery cases, and Zero Limit knows it, or you wouldn't be able to stay in the business. There's a lot of people out there who buy battery cases. There's some people out there that try to make fun. And you know how handy these come in your backpack? They come in your backpack. It's the truth. They will come in handy. And I think a lot of people out there try to act like they're not hip to it. But I'm telling you, these battery cases from Zero Limit are the truth. They come in handy so good, man. And then that's like doubling your batteries throughout. You can take it for a whole weekend.
I'm just thinking like, one thing I didn't cover about when we were talking about like with the iPhone 13 Pro is what's crazy to me is this is a 3,095 milliamp hour battery, and the battery life I get, like if you were to tell if you were to look like you said earlier, if you were to be like this only has a 3,000 milliamp hour battery, people would be like, what is that thing gonna get me like 4 hours of screen on on like the Android side? People like the numbers. That's why I don't like that whole thing. Like, and then the Pro Max, that's crazy. 4,400 milliamp hour battery on that thing. Like that thing must just go for days again. Like the 11 Pro Max was my last favorite iPhone as far as like battery life. Like everything was pretty well balanced on that. Yeah, we've gotten camera improvements, but like that thing, I could go a 3-day weekend with that thing, 14 to 16 hours screen on time with like typical use of a weekend where, you're not sitting on it and doing, high intensive stuff because you're gone on vacation or whatever. You're at the in-laws. You're not probably sitting there like video editing necessarily, but even like an intensive, I would get 10, 12 hours on that thing and nothing like that's gone down. That was a dramatic change. Like 11 Pro Max to 12 Pro Max. I feel like that was the worst transition because you went from like that to like half the battery life the next year. Yeah. But these things are. I might pick one of these up, especially because, like you said, you could put that on the charger and just have it around. So like we're gonna go camping and just throw my phone on there and be good to go and not have to carry it all the time. Not have to like plug in a cable.
Right.
Be good to go. Most of the time, I'm near a charger. I'm by a desk. I have a battery pack with me.
Good on these phones, to be honest. I mean, the battery life is great on here. So there's, it's getting better. But having a battery pack, and we'll talk. Power banks is another reason. Another thing I like too. I keep a wireless power bank. Zero Limit has a wireless battery pack charger too. It's really nice. So I think if you don't like
didn't you do a review on that? And you had 2 different models in that video, if I remember correctly, because you showed the old model and the new model and you compared them and like showed and wasn't the and the new model had where basically it was like it didn't matter which way it's rotated because you had the ports on like both ends and stuff and like the wireless charging wasn't and the wireless charging is only on one side though, right?
Yeah, that was only on one side.
But everything else is. I remember that. I was just thinking. I was like, you did the.
That thing is incredible. That thing is incredible, and I'm looking for it now. But I'm telling you that freaking thing is sick. And the battery cases from Zero Limit for the different iPhones. I'm trying to find these different ones here because there's different sizes, but. Like I said, I'll have a review up on these hopefully soon because I think I just put that one in there. What's going on, Joseph? I see. Let me see. Here is the iPhone 13 Pro 7,000 Zero Limit. I need to find that one you're talking about because actually it's in there. I use it every day just about. I power my MacBook Pro and I'll have something else on the wireless charger on top of the wireless charging portion of it. So. That's
wow. Sure enough,
nice, man.
Amazon has the 5,000 milliamp hour one with
I just posted it in the
with
chat.
with a screen, with the screen
Yeah, they
protector
give
for $40
now. Yeah, they give the screen protectors now.
I could get that thing Thursday if I ordered it now.
Exactly. I just posted that in the link in the description too. You can see it there. I'm trying to find that that one Zero Lemon battery pack that you're talking about. That thing is so nice, man. It's the one that has the wireless charging. Oh man, I can't find it on Amazon anywhere. But
the hard thing is to know
it's
which
old,
of these.
though. It's a couple of years old.
To know which of these companies to trust on Amazon when you type in battery pack or
you need
battery
to find
cases.
the ones that say sold by Amazon if you can, or if you're doing like Anchor, it'll show their website or whatever. Man, oh man, we're rolling up on 2 hours. I gotta get out of here. Woo! It is 3:50. I didn't even notice it. Man, look, I am happy Mikey was able to join. Folks, there was a quick 2 hours. See, it's so much better when you have more than one person. That's why I said
that was fun. 2 hours. I had to look. I'm like, my wife's supposed to be home by now. She's like, I'm good. I got our son. He was taking a nap when he came on. She's like, I got him. You're good. Yeah. She knows.
Yes, sir. So, I mean, we can discuss more. Definitely, this can definitely go on and on and on because, well, smartphoneconversations.com. That's where I am. So I love to talk about smartphones. So thanks, Mike, for coming by. Thanks, Trent, for coming by.
As always.
Tell them once again where they can find you at, man, on social media, all your social media, before we get out of here.
You can find me at Michael Pepper Tech on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And of course, we'll have to, hit it up, do it again. Usually I'll say this, usually, not always, can't make that promise. If you need somebody, send me a message. I'll be there and come on in and, we can hit it up, chop it up, let people know how things are going a little further down the line, when it's been more than like 5 days that we've had these devices or whatever. And
I tend to keep
if there's anything we've discovered
this is here to stay. I have no intention of dropping out on this bad boy.
That shocked us and has been devastatingly bad or surprisingly good or whatever, because that tends to happen. You never know. Or, they drop a 15.0.1 update and fix some of the weird things that we didn't even get into covering. So
I got an update right before this stream too. For some reason, another update came in. It was 2 they both said 15. Even though it came with 15, I've already gotten 2 that say 15. I'm like, okay. And then my MacBook was updated as well.
There was one that was just specific for the 13 series. It was like a 349 meg update.
And then I got another one before this stream for 89, I think it was. I was like, whoa, okay. It still says 15 though, so I don't know what that's about. But anyway, folks, man, I'm gonna get out of here. I appreciate you guys stopping by. It is Tuesday. My Tuesday stream. It's a lot of fun streaming during the day. So next week, got something special to talk about. Hopefully, if everything goes as planned, I have a nice stream coming next week and more content every day. What's your next video you're working on, man? Before we get out of here. You got anything planned?
Yeah.
No spoilers.
So I actually just dropped. It was a really fun video. That my wife got she upgraded her 12 mini to a 13. Their battery health was really bad. So we're sitting in the car and she's like, why don't you just record me unboxing it? So I pull out my phone and record it and uploaded it. And it was one of those, like, to get a reaction, because she's not like a, she's not like a techie. She's like a normal, to get her reaction and then kind of have her like tell, okay, why did I get a new phone? What do I like about it? Like, just kind of reaction to that. And the case was like that authentic thing. So I want to do that again. So I think next video, if all goes to plan, my wife and I are going away and my son are going away this weekend. Will be, and I'm going to have, she's like, well, you can use my phone to take photos and videos and stuff if you want to compare. I'm going to have her just do it. So it'll be, her using her phone and then compare like that to me using my iPhone. Obviously photos might not, photos aren't going to be identical, but I'll try to, like take similar things similar situations, similar lighting as she's around and stuff. And, but just that, and just, I think a wrap up of like, her kind of experience going from a device that wouldn't last her the day to what's been going on now with it. And, I have so many ideas. I don't plan out a lot of stuff because to me, like, I like the authenticity of like, oh, this is an idea. I just sit down and discuss and ramble, and it just comes out as some crazy, you know, thought on things and discussion on things. And it's my favorite type, you know, and even if only 30 people watch it compared to, you know, whatever some of the other videos get, like if one person, if that inspires one person or educates one person or touches one person, I've done my job on that video, and that's all that, you know.
That's I think that goes along with a lot of things in life. You know, somebody's always worth watching, and we just don't know that, and because they might not say anything, but someone's always watching. I'm in a lot of streams, and I don't say anything. I just watch and just enjoy the stream, and I leave it at that. So yeah, it's always somebody watching. You never know who's checking you out.
And real quick, I will say thank you to everybody in the chat for swinging on by, supporting the OG Jay Williams.
I'm OG now.
And thanks to Jay for having me on.
Oh, yeah.
You know, this is awesome. This is special to me. He might not know that.
Oh, no. No, you're good.
You remember when I won an Honor 8X in red from you?
Oh, man, you sure did. That was a long time ago.
I still have it. I am not getting rid of that thing no matter what.
Man.
I still have that thing, and it is beautiful. That thing is just
item. But
that's all I got, you know, and the inspiration of like, when you just sit down and you're like, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Oh,
like that's and you get there and you're like, yeah, it's not that, like, you don't have to have fancy equipment. Just sit down and do your thing. So.
Yeah, no, you just sit down and that's kind of piggyback. Oh, I was asking about your next video. So I'll go ahead and close out because my next video is probably going to be interesting. Some people are probably, if you're on my Twitter, you already know where I'm going with that video. So there's a couple of hints on my Twitter. They're not meant to be hints for the next video, but technically they are. I've already started shooting the video, and I just happened to post something on Twitter that's not a video. So if you go there, you'll see some hint to what that is, that next video might be about. So I appreciate you guys, man. I normally stream for about 2 hours on Tuesday, and we have hit that mark just about in a few minutes. So I will see you guys in the next video. Michael Peppertech, appreciate you coming on. Everybody give Mike a thumbs up on the way out. Hit his channel up, Michael Peppertech. I mean, you guys already know who he is. If you don't know who he is, Michael Peppertech. You'll find him on YouTube, and he does some good work on there. So go check. No spoilers. I don't like to give any spoilers. That's why I told Trent, don't say too much. You know, let him go to your channel so they can figure it out. So it's your man Jay. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Shout out to all the replay crew that'll catch this on the replay. Take care.